get started, if y'all will stand with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That said, we are here at our special called work session devoted to our budget review and discussion. Appreciate everybody making time to be here. There's been a lot of work and consideration and review that's gone into this point, and we will take questions and comments and thoughts from this meeting and continue to work towards making a first reading of an ordinance at our May 25th, 7 o'clock meeting. So with that said, we have a short little PowerPoint presentation. If we could go to the next slide, Zach. And Zach, thank you for being here today with us from Studio 46. Studio 46 does a great job for us, and it's very much appreciated. So the proposed budget timeline, we shared this draft on May 11th. Today is May 15th. We are just having a work session, discussion, review, questions, comments, all those things. And then we have 10 days until our first reading of the budget ordinance. And then after that first reading, the mechanism is it is sent on to DLG for review. Then we get a thumbs up to have the second reading. Hopefully the second reading would be on June 9th. And then we would submit the final on June 10th to the Department of Local Government. Any questions or comments related to that timeline? Michelle, you have anything? You work with DLG, and Jared usually hand delivers it in paper.
They don't do that anymore. They did phase that part out.
They won't allow us to hand deliver it? All right. Well, we will email it then. And then they just simply give you an email back saying it's been approved for second reading received. So if there's no other questions, then that we'll stick with that timeline, and we'll go to the next slide. I think we're going to have to move or lower the TV on wheels just a little bit. Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, let me see. Well, it should be trying to think where the release is. Should be right there. I think it's permanently, it's in a permanent spot.
Well, if we just move it to the side and then we will.
Should I move it closer to you, Michelle? Or
Still blocking. I just wanted the court to be able to see the screen. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna move that way then.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. So just some overview of the budget. It's a balanced $43.3 million FY 23-24 general fund budget. And we are, proud to present that. And it's important to be good stewards of tax dollars and trying to operate within, our recurring revenues. What is reflected in this proposal is a 5% employee pay increase above the compensation tier adjustments. We'll talk about that. This budget maintains existing programs and services at current levels, makes a significant capital plan, structurally balanced with current recurring expenses paid with current reoccurring income. And that's important. Questions or comments there before we move on? Next slide. So this year you're going to see a difference because of our capital improvement plan and fund being reflected into this year's budget a little bit differently. And we called several judge executives, talked to different treasurers, and felt like the appropriate way to reflect the budget was to reflect the total cost estimate for the projects, even though we know that the timeline to build the EMS station is if everything gets started on time, it will probably stay within this budget year, but could bleed over into the next. The sheriff's office, clerk's office, there is no question that it will be a 2-year project. So, and then there's a few grant projects that our match would be involved. Most likely will not come up in this year's budget, but we need to reflect it because that's the appropriate thing and the transparent thing. So looking down through the general fund, you see general fund of $43,323,247. Our road fund, $4,959,288. Jail fund, $5,109,602. LGE&A fund, $200,000. Federal forfeiture fund, $13,850. ABC regulatory fund, $13,255. ARPA fund is reflecting zero because we've moved that into capital.
We will be moving it.
Yes. Opioid settlement fund, $200,000. County clerk storage fund, something new, along with that opioid settlement fund as well, $90,000. McCracken fund's been here for a long time. It's $2,000. Hospital trust fund, $2,000. And then the biggest one there, that capital improvements fund at $23,487,000 for a grand total of all funds, $77,400,237. So as we go on to the next slide, the number one thing is we provide services to the community, and I'm very proud of what our court has done in the past years to adjust compensation, and everything's been done based on data. Everything that's been done has been based on medians that have been established at looking at multiple sources of data. And, in my mind, the number one resource we have is our employees. And I think our actions as a court have reflected our value of our employees by our compensation strategies. But looking at this year's proposed COLA, could we, what's appropriate, and we always try to look at, in the past couple of years, we've looked at 3 different options. This year we looked at 3, 4, and 5 as comparators, and what it would, what the bottom line would cost, and the budget committee settled on recommending 5%. That wasn't just out of the air. The data that reflects that 5% recommendation is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and it's based on a 12-month local government estimated increase in cost. Jeff, would you like to add anything to that?
No, it's just the cost of labor over the last 12 months. I think it was 4.9% exactly. Right at 5%, it was. I think it was in December. It was 4.8%. We kind of figured it might be right around 5%. So that's basically where we landed at the 5%.
We used that data piece last year for our recommendation. We're using that data piece again, and that 5%. Now, what that does, what I always like to look at is percent of budgets, and you're adding those up, and it gets us to right at 55% of our budgets. But a $29 million or thereabouts cost for wages and benefits. Questions, comments regarding that recommendation of 5% and how we came upon that. In the past, there's been times where there, not since I've been judge, but there's been past where we didn't do anything, or 25 cents, or a variety of different ones. But this 5% with inflation and looking at the data that's from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, I think that's a wise recommendation.
Do you remember what we did last year?
4%. Yeah. 4%. Any other questions? Next slide, please. Now, draft July 2023 pay adjustment costs. Kind of shared this information with you all previously, but in the big picture of our compensation strategy, the addition of pay or pay steps or tiers for employees reaching 2.5, 7.5, 12.5 years of total service credit. And then currently there's a 5-year wait before reaching the next tier, and the addition of new tiers should support our employee retention efforts. Our current median length of employment is just short of 5 years. So what we're doing is, instead of having to wait for 5 years, you're going to get a bump at 2.5, and then 7.5, and then 12.5. And then we also have the existing pay tier adjustment costs for employees that reach that 5-year, 10-year, 15 years of total service. So if you look at both of those combined, your wages are around $79,733 for the new tiers, for a total of cost of about $120,668, and then existing tier adjustments at 60-month, 120, and 180. It's about $37,721 total. Questions on that? And I can share this with you if you all would like me to via email.
Are you marching down a path of every year bump steps? Is that something that you're ultimately trying to work your way towards, or is it?
Jeff and I have talked, like when I first became judge, the conversation was, essentially having a pay scale similar to that as the education system. And that locks us in a little bit as compared to where we have medians, and we adjust the medians periodically to reflect changes in the market. But I'd be curious to see what Jeff says.
Well, I would say the answer is probably no right now. Just if we had a more sophisticated payroll system. Otherwise, it's just hard to keep up with anniversary dates. We'll be spending a great deal more time on compensation if that's what happens.
Just do July 1 every year or whatever.
Well, that'd be one option. But if a person is hired in August, they have to wait the entire year. So So.
Well, we're going to that too. We're going to battle through that. We're going to have those 4 or 5 years down.
Yeah. I think probably the most important group to be paying attention to is that 0 to 5 year group.
Yeah.
I mean, it's trying to do what we can to retain that group. Once you get beyond 5 years, I think that people are more likely to stick around, but it's trying to find ways to engage that 0 to 5. So if we did anything, I could see working on the steps from the 0 to 5 range probably.
What's the paid time off thresholds on those?
Oh, I know it's definitely, there's a threshold at 4 years. I can't remember. I think it might have been at 8, 12, and then 15, but I can't remember.
Like 2 weeks. I mean, I forget. I used to know, but I don't recall.
We start off with 12 days. At 4 years, it goes to 15 days. I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back and look at the policy manual, but I think it said 8 is the next plateau, then 12, and then 15. But
I know a lot of things I read today, keeping current employees, that's, maybe something we look at too.
well, that's one of the things the first things I did when I got here is I did a study of our vacation leave policy, and the court agreed to enhance that. Right. Remember, you also had to be here a year before you got the first day of vacation leave. Right. So we let people start accruing it immediately, and they can start using it within 3 months of being here. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Next slide, please. So, also, Jeff looking at some issues that are within different departments, looking at EMS and EMA, felt like we had some real pay compression with staff and supervision positions. And we also looked at the cost to provide a $3,000 annual training incentive for non-clerical EMS staff, similar to an incentive provided to the fire department employees, sheriff department employees. Since EMS is not fire-based, they are not eligible for state training incentive. EMS staff currently complete 150 hours of annual training. 4 EMS staff will be designated as critical care paramedics, which requires an additional certification, and they will receive $4,000 annual training incentive. So the costs for those recommended adjustments is right up there. It's about $59,471 for EMS and EMA pay compression, and then annual EMS training incentive, $3,000 per employee, 150 hours. There's 44 staff. 4 of those would be at the $4,000 level, but it's about $205,000 for that recommendation. And we think it's, EMS does a lot of training, and it was an opportunity to be another incentive for retention and recruitment. That's where that came out of. Questions or comments?
Question. You want me to ask them now or later about?
Oh, now.
So I have 2 different questions. One about the 4,000 for the critical care. Are these going to be for specific spots and are we talking about like the advanced cert, like CCPC, or is this the Kentucky endorsement for critical care?
It's the Kentucky endorsement for critical care.
So
currently,
like you only have 4 spots, but like anybody, like I could go take a critical care class and get my own endorsement. So what if we have 8 people that have, and everybody goes and gets it?
Right. So the way we set this up was that just the people that we're utilizing as critical care paramedics. So even if we had 10, we only have basically 4 positions. So,
So like it doesn't go to anybody that just goes and gets the cert on their own?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
And then my next question is about the 150. That's a lot about. Are these CE hours, or are they just general training hours?
These are CE hours. So
That's
this
a
is
lot of CE hours.
It is. It is.
Is that done on duty?
The majority of it is, yes.
Majority or all of it?
Not all. There's some mandatory classes that we have where they are off duty because we can't have people coming and going from the classroom. The majority of what we do on duty is scenario-based stuff, and then our online, we use phone prep for online training.
Are these like just Kentucky TEI hours, like your local, like you are giving the hours? These aren't like CAPCE or anything?
Most of them are CAPCE, not all, but most. Yeah.
Because that also has a cost too. Each CAPCE course, every hour you get is. Do you all pay? Who do you all run that through? Your CAPCE, who's that ran through?
John Ostrom. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of CAPCE hours.
Yeah. Are you familiar with phone prep at all? Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all that training is CAPCE, and we assign online training every month.
So you're just paying for phone frat, and they're giving you the CAPCE numbers. So you're not paying any extra for the actual hours.
No.
You're just paying for the phone frat.
Yep.
Makes you play fun.
Why aren't you all in the state? I don't understand why you all in your state exactly.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it. I think 150 is a bunch of hours. I mean, maybe you all looked at it and said, but that's a significant, especially if your expectations do it on shift. It's hard for somebody to get 150 hours of CE credit on if you're busy. That's just a lot of hours.
It is, yeah.
I mean, you could renew any license you ever had with 150 hours a year.
Right.
You could do National Registry. You could do Advanced Cert. I mean, Advanced Cert's only 100 hours every 4 years.
Right.
So, kudos for it. It just seems like a lot.
I mean,
to
we
me.
can lower it to 100.
No, I'm sure you all had a reason for the 150. That's just a
I mean, that's
lot.
been a long-standing practice, hasn't it?
That's an average, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what that came from, so.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Wallace. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to the next slide, please. Looking at, based upon review of new market data for a few positions, the median pay for deputy sheriff position has increased significantly. You know, Jeff and I've talked about this, the budget committee's talked about this. You know, just over the last 3 or 4 years, the market and the atmosphere, a lot has changed within law enforcement. Sheriff Hampton's here, and if you want to comment on it, please feel, you know, but there's, you know, an increased demand for law enforcement officers across the United States. And after Jeff looked at this, to remain competitive with the market, the Budget Committee recommends increasing the market median pay to provide a $1 per hour increase to uniformed full-time staff in addition to the COLA. And that estimate of cost there would be about $135,358. Sheriff, you want to make a comment?
You use the word competitive. That's what's going on. A lot of agencies around us are bumping it up, and it makes it a little bit harder to recruit. We do a pretty good job with retention overall, I feel like, but recruitment is a little more challenging now.
But when Jeff looked at the median, it felt like it was warranted to have this recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, we have one opening right now. We're interviewing some folks, but
It's not been like killing you as far as retention, been great.
no, we've done pretty well with that. I mean, we lose one every now and then, but it's pretty good. We were adding one, if not two, a year for a little while, weren't we, Michelle? We haven't done that for a while. Well, we did add one, so.
So, questions or comments related to that?
On any of these that you hire, are you able to find any better, or maybe you're not even looking, for those that are retired?
Well,
Or do you look for that, or I don't know how that works?
no, we do. It's challenging. A lot of people now are retiring and are staying retired. Whereas it used to seem like a lot of them would retire and be ready to come back in about a year. They would kind of miss it, and actually a lot of them retire young in their 40s, so plenty of work left in them. The biggest challenge is getting laterals, and I like to try to hire untrained and trained laterals. But the reason we want laterals is hiring someone untrained. We're about a year getting them ready. We're paying them, for training, and then at DOCJT, then they come back and they have to train here and ride with deputies and do their PTO training. So it's about a year before you put them on the road. So that's why laterals are pretty valuable if you can get them.
Right. Any other questions?
Starting wage, or is that somebody?
Well, that's across the board, $1 to every uniformed full-time staff member, starting.
But the 89,440.
That 89,440 is the cost, the additional cost for wages across the department.
Okay.
And then the retirement and FICA make it a total change of $135,358.
Now, I don't know how much of a difference this would make. I had this discussion with Jeff last week, I think. I asked if we could consider, I have a good deal of part-time deputy sheriffs at the Justice Building. Those are very important positions, the bailiffs. And I asked if we could possibly just give them the same compensation increase that everybody got, because we really need to keep them. And, with the new Justice Building coming, we're probably going to be looking at having to double that staff when it's done, because there are going to be so many more courtrooms and it's going to be a bigger facility. So
How
wanna
much
make
of
it
that
more-
is,
I'm sorry?
a percentage of that is reimbursed?
Yeah, so it used to be $9 an hour, but now we're reimbursed $15 an hour for those guys. And we put in all their hours monthly, send it, and they submit a check, and we send it up to Michelle.
Questions or comments about that?
Well, isn't most of your staff in the Justice Center, aren't they already been retired and now they're coming
Yes, sir.
back? So they're getting retirement plus pay. Maybe Chester, maybe not. I don't.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say it out loud so I can. BJ is retired, Chester is retired and reemployed full-time wise. Steve Farrell, he's from Lexington, he's full-time, retired. Ronnie is retired, correct. Jeff Gardner is retired. Mickey Morris, yeah.
So are those, some of those folks that are just getting an hourly rate or whatever without
Well, so
contribution?
we had the discussion. You want to talk about this right now as far as the contracts or but just leave it.
Well, and I think we looked at this for the SROs, that if we can retire officers who are retired, then they can sign a contract that we haven't got to provide the health insurance or retirement to them. So,
But you say you don't have to.
So what we're going to do starting in July is everybody that's full-time, we're going to do a contract with them. And with that contract, we don't have to pay into the retirement, the 44% or whatever. So we're going to save a considerable amount of money by contracting. I think we have 5 or 6 full-time. So we're going to contract. We've already told them we're expecting them to do that. And it's the reason is it's cost savings, and they're not getting benefit for us paying into it anyway. So if we contract them, then we don't have to pay into it, which would be a significant amount of money to Michelle.
and normally we have to make that health insurance contribution either. We're paying the state for that health insurance right now, and they're not even on our plan, but we're using it as an offset to the retiree health insurance that they have right now through the state. So it saves us money there too.
So I'll ask Jeff if he could give us a cost estimate for the dollar for court security, and then we'll share that.
So it sounds like most of your court security guys or folks are retired and.
Correct. Even the part-time. Now,
So
3 of the
where-
part-time are court security officers, which you can hire a civilian and send them to 3 weeks of training within their first year of employment. I recently just hired 2 court security officers, and they're doing very well. It just requires less training, and we got their compensation up a little bit, especially with the state giving us the 15 back. Well, they were making less than that, so now we're paying them a little bit more than that.
What about their benefits? You say
I'm sorry?
What about their, like the benefit package? Do they?
They're
get-
part-time. They can't work any more than 99 hours per month.
I thought you said part-time.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
there's no need to contract them.
Next slide. Thank you, Sheriff. Then also, we had similar situation at the detention center with some cost compression or some pay compression with staff and supervision. The cost to provide. We also were aware that deputy jailers were doing approximately 40 hours of mandatory required training per year. The budget committee discussed making, a similar incentive to what we've done with EMS, with 50 hours of training, that we would then provide a $1,000 annual training incentive to the detention center staff members. So up there are cost compression adjustments that we need to make, recommended to make, is about $26,887, and then our training incentive program based on 28 staff, and we still have to discuss the staffing at the deputy jailer level, but that number is about 42,375, just to give you an idea of what it would be. Now, any questions or comments about that?
So it's from our discussion Friday, I guess it was. So that 28 is still up in the air.
Yeah.
He was wanting to be at 30.
and Jeff has some data to share today, and we can talk about it today, but certainly we'll have to discuss it prior to the meeting on the 25th, before we talk about the budget.
Gotcha.
So, so with that said, any questions or comments? We will move to the next slide then. And your total on all of those adjustments is $628,303. But all of those items we think impact employee retention and employee recruitment. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, proposed budget recommends the addition of the following staff. We've discussed the 3 firefighters that we've talked about. We've discussed a 3 school resource officer addition with a 185-day contract, retired POP certified officers, and you know, we might have to adjust that just a little bit for training, make sure we're covering training, but that's our, you know, just an attempt to work with the local school system and provide additional staff for you know, public safety. And the city has also discussed adding 3 as well. With adding these, there's still a question about how we handle, you know, we need to reach out to Stamping Ground about, you know, Don Whitlock he's there all the time, but he's not there all the time. He gets called away and such, you know. If, Sheriff, if you want to comment on it, because we've talked about it.
Yeah, so Don, he has another police officer now, another full-time, so they normally both are there during the daytime. So if we were to add 3 more SROs, that would probably be at the bottom of the list as far as where we put
them. Because they're pretty well covered.
Yeah, because they're there.
Yeah.
Most days, and when they're not and they're in training, they let us know because we have to go do traffic control, and our deputies do a good job of getting out of all the schools and walking through, I feel like, and just checking in with them. So,
Jill, thanks. Any questions for Sheriff Hampton? I have a question about this. Just what if we can't? He just said earlier he's having more trouble finding retired people. So what if we approve these 3 new positions and we only hire 1 retired? Will the other 2 be filled by a full-time? We'll come back to the court and we'll talk about it. So, but for these, they have to be retired. For this, the goal is to hire 3 POP certified officers that are retired for a 185-day contract, and the dollar figure that we used for an hourly rate was $27 an hour.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff, you were talking about those some folks you've hired for court security, but they're not probably POP certified.
they're not.
And they have to be a resource officer at the school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so if we contract with the 3, they're still going to have their annual training just like they would if they were full-time. But now there's Dwayne is a SR1, SR2, and SR3. So that, you know, that
Each year they have to take, you know, not for all 1 year.
Yeah.
Year without law.
So the
40 hours, I think it's 40 hours.
it is 40 hours. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Do you think we're gonna have trouble finding 3 at $27 an hour, retired, POP certified?
I mean, I'll be open with you. I think it's going to be a challenge. I'm concerned about it being a challenge, but we've got to start somewhere. I think we can always talk about going up if we need to. The good thing is we're not paying benefits or insurance or anything like that. So, I'm sorry.
I think you can sell location and rather than pediatric station and things like that. So.
It could be enticing. I mean, they get most of the summer off, weekends off. So
Eastern Elementary, Northern Elementary.
I would really want one at Northern
Yeah.
and Eastern, definitely.
Yeah, and then
And we talked about Creekside, Dwayne.
yeah. So that's, I think it's the right thing to do. And then we will have to, thanks, Sheriff. We will have to talk about jail staffing. We're going to do that here in a minute. We also need to bring back up to this to the court. Of course, we won't have a vote or anything today, but we had a clerical mistake on our coroner pay study, and deputy coroner, that is. And Mark Sutton, our coroner, made a request for a pay increase, and I'll pass this out right now. And Jeff, do you want to pass out anything you have on our, or you just want to talk now about jail staffing?
I could just talk about jail staffing.
Okay, if you'll go ahead and start that conversation, and then, so where we're at is 26 full-time deputy jail staff, and the request is to go back to 30 by Jailer Broyles, and we made the adjustment. I guess it was in January when we made the adjustment in an effort to adjust compensation rates at that time and not go over budget. So I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah. What I have done is for the last 6 months, so for the fourth quarter and first quarter of this year, fourth quarter of last year and first quarter of this year, looked at how many regular hours were worked, how many overtime hours were worked, vacation, sick leave, holiday, and then how many total hours were actually worked between regular and overtime, and trying to figure out, how many hours are actually being worked in the jail. So I tried to dig into the data to see what that told us, and also broke out the part-time hours, so I know exactly how many hours are being performed by part-time employees. And if you convert everything to the number of full-time equivalent employees you would need to cover the number of hours. For example, in one pay period back in October, there were 2,117 hours worked. So if you converted that to how many hours a full-time employee works, how many people would you actually need? It's 25.2 people. So for the first pay period in October, it was 25.2 people. And if I run down the list here, it ranges from the next period, it was 22.5, 24.5, 26.2, 23.4, 23.9, and so on. The average is for that 6-month period is 25 people. You need 25 FTE to cover all the shifts. And what that means is if you had 25 FTE, you wouldn't need any part-timers. I mean, that's 25 full-time equivalent employees working. A full shift is how many people you would need to cover the hours that were necessary.
And I wouldn't stop right there, and I'll say that figure does not include the deputy that is now being assigned to the programming. Correct? To the
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
well,
yeah.
not that, just those.
Yeah. This was just people who were actually
At that
in the
time,
jail. Yeah.
At that time, that programming wasn't being offered. The other item is we're asking them to do assessments with the Isaiah House, trying to help individuals. And then lastly, what he's been using, from what we see and what he shared, he's largely using part-time deputies to do the trash pickup, the community service, but I'll let Jeff continue.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of an uptick at the end of February and the beginning of March. It was 28.8 FTE and 28.3 FTE in that last pay period in March, and we just haven't studied any additional pay periods. I felt like looking at 6 months worth of data was a good data set to work
So it
from.
climbed up there
A little
those
bit at the
last
end,
2
yeah.
months up to a little bit over 28.
Yeah. But once again, that includes your part-timers working too. And to kind of give you an idea how many hours there are in a month, there's 190 hours of work being performed by an employee per month. And there's 1.5 FTE of work being performed by part-time staff right now. So if you were to back that out of the numbers, then that drops it down some.
What's going on back there?
So that's,
All
yeah,
right.
go ahead, Greg.
So,
Rick,
I don't know what I was going to ask. No, you said February and March were the higher ones?
Yes.
Because you haven't done April probably.
No, we haven't.
Right. So, and they were up around the 28?
Right, and then but that includes full-timers, part-timers, everything.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm remembering that's when he started, I'm assuming when he started ramping up all the programs and so his workload is what I'm driving at.
Yeah.
And that should continue the way it sounds because he's got the,
Shouldn't it be, pretty standard? You've got this many people, shift 1, shift 2,
well,
shift 3.
didn't he share that he wanted 4 on the floor,
yeah.
but with the programming during the day, he's got 1 person assigned to that. That makes you 5 during the day per shift. Yeah.
He said right now they
On the
operate at-
floor. That's on the floor.
At a
That's
minimum.
not counting your admin.
But to answer your question, Dwayne, yes, we have the detailed data. We know exactly on any given day for the last 6 months who was working that day. You could almost run a slice through a day and see who was here in the daytime hours, who was here in the evening hours, because we needed to do all that to create this. I mean, this was a substantial amount of work to come up with this.
The only thing I would be careful about using those winter months is because of all this trash pickup and that's an extra body on another campus or another out. Got more people outside of the jail hours.
Yeah.
Well, he's just now ramping that back up too because for almost 2 years or 2.5, he didn't have anybody out.
You shared with me kind of a look at the budget, over, like dollar figure. Do you have that stat that?
Yeah, I do.
Year to date, kind of where we're at.
I brought the kitchen sink with me today. So I do, and I could pass this out if you. I think I have enough for everybody. Yeah, I do have enough for everybody. So thanks. So what we also did is we looked at.
Thank you.
So what I have for you here is just jail wage expense. I heard there was, and I was sorry for not being here at the meeting on Friday, but there were some questions about overtime expense, and overtime is part of the equation. But what you need to look at also is just, well, how did you do in comparison to your budget? Were you actually exceeding your budget for your labor expense? And if you look at the 2021-22 budget, it was $1,377,000. The actual labor expense, this is just wages paid, was $1,314,000, and he was $62,000 under budget. So even with overtime, he was under budget. So far this year, this fiscal year, is that budget year to date is $1,166,000. Actual year to date is $1,060,000. So he's $106,000 under budget. So you can say, well, overtime, we have more overtime hours than ever before. Well, that would make sense if you are short people, you're going to need overtime. But still, even with that, you're not exceeding your budget. Whereas in some other departments, it's just the opposite's true. You're fully staffed and you're still incurring additional expense, and your overtime hours are going up.
But Jeff, isn't it true though that you're looking at wages, but the inmates that we have paid they're going to other counties. That was budgeted for $100,000, and we went past $100,000 in that line item last month.
But that doesn't, I follow what you're saying, respect what you're saying, but
You're talking the whole operating cost.
you're talking about the big picture umbrella.
That's right.
We're
Right.
just talking about
Right.
wage and
Yeah.
benefits
It's
for,
something it needs to be taken into
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the equation, right? But I think they're there because they have to stay away from our inmates, right? Most of those are,
Starts again on July.
we're not above the 140 inmates where we have the contracts in place,
Right.
but it's to deal with overcrowding.
Jeff, based on what you looked at, how many employees do you think we need to cover all that we have?
Well, I believe I have in some of the reports I put up here, I think 28 would be sufficient. And I think you just start with that, and then if that's not cutting it, then you look
Well, I
at,
mean, we think 25 is getting it right now. And then we know,
well, that's on
somebody
average over the last
quits or-
6 months.
right. And it was better than that before. But I think that 28 sounds like that would, to me, would be good. And of course, it probably depends on part-time people too, I'm sure.
Right.
How much of this wage expense, where he was under, was because a lot of this predates my time on the court. 2021 and 2022, I heard before that he would, they were supposed to have 30 full-time staff. I think he was down to like in the 18s, right? And that was somebody. So like you're
full-time.
Full-time. I mean, yes. So they were missing 12 staff. So how much of that different? Like, do you think that these numbers would be different if he had been at 30 the whole time? So 2021, 2022, 2022, 2020. A lot of this predates me. So as being 12 under, like where do you think he'd be at now if he had 30 staff that was budgeted at this expense?
Well, the $1,377,000 is the budget. I don't know if I can answer that question really. I would anticipate that'd be the budget for 30 people because there were 30 positions still. So I don't know why you would build a budget for less than the 30 people you have working.
The overtime issues.
Right.
If you have somebody out for a while.
I can't imagine if you added 12 more employees to your question, you'd have to be way over budget.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what I'm thinking. If they were
He
full
cut the
staff,
budget like 10 people short,
yeah.
but it's not that much. I mean, 60 grand, that's not even one full-time employee's full benefit package.
Questions or comments down here about,
Well, I was looking at, there's 106,000 left in this fiscal year, right? Is that enough to cover his budget for the rest of the year, right? Am I looking at that right?
well, no, year to date, he's 106,000 shy of what he was budgeted at.
Yeah, so he's got 106,000 to make his payroll for the next 6 weeks.
No.
Right.
He's got more money than that.
This is just, I took the, and I don't know, I don't have that number here as handy, maybe as Michelle does, but that's just the budget
He could have
through
spent that much
April.
more and added it here, and he would have been dead.
I didn't
on.
list the
He'd
total
still have-
budget for the year. That's just the
still
total
have
budget through
The
April.
rest of this, there'd still be money to pay.
Does our budget include?
The total budget's about 1.4, Rob, for deputies. So he's shy of 106,000 of that percentage,
At year to date.
year to date.
So it's through April, yeah.
So does because the way he explained it, that his deputies work in a pay period, 3 12s 1 week, 4 12s the next week, which is 84 hours. So there's 4 hours of every single pay period
That's
they're
right.
getting time and a half all automatically. So does our budget reflect that 4.5 hours per deputy
Yes.
per pay period?
Yes.
Do you think, I brought this up, do you think there would be a benefit, something we could look at, is if we went to 3 12s, or 6 12s, 3 and 3?
It's just a completely different model. I mean, it's like having people work in the nursing profession. 5 8s, 4 10s, 3 12s.
I mean, we do 36 hours a week, 2 pay periods, and then that's a 0.9, but we consider that full time.
Right.
And we'd have to adjust some salaries, but then that would also give us, the court, flexibility and give Darren flexibility, because now somebody else could work 8 more hours and not even be in overtime yet.
The biggest issue is you don't want to negatively impact take-home pay.
Oh, we'd have
And
to
then-
adjust their salaries.
and then-
I'm not saying that.
And then the other biggest issue is right now he's got 24, 25, now Karis give me 23.
It's 23 right
Like
now.
we would have to hire more bodies with 312s and 312s because we'd have to hire more staff. And his biggest issue right now is having staff, in my opinion. You follow me?
Yeah,
I
but
don't
a deputy
disagree.
jailer-
And it-
Yeah, and
Let
I'm
me
not-
just
and I
clarify
would-
this.
there-
A
there have
deputy
to be-
jailer, no matter how many hours you work in a week, whether it be 12, whether you work 312s, 5/8s, 4/10s, you're going to earn the same pay rate regardless of how many hours you work. That's a choice that an employee makes to take a reduced schedule. And with that reduced schedule comes less pay. So I don't know that you're going to pay a person who works 312s more than somebody who works 5/8s. I mean, it's an RN makes an RN pay, whether you work 5/8s, 312s.
With our 3 and 4 rotation, that the take-home pay is the take-home pay is the issue, and
Yeah.
we're struggling retaining and recruiting. I don't want to do anything that would negatively impact that take-home pay.
No, I don't either.
But
You'd
you
have
don't
to make,
bump
you'd have
up
to
a
make some
person's-
adjustments so that they would
Yeah.
make.
But I think those would be a good request from the jailer, in my opinion.
I thought
Instead
he,
of us trying to decide, because he knows his employees and what they want to work, and they may be all for that or against it, but I'd rather him talk to them and come back to us.
I thought this was mentioned, and I thought he said that was worth a discussion. Maybe I missed it.
Maybe he's going back to talk to his
Misunderstood.
people.
I thought he mentioned it in our meeting last week.
He did, he said it'd be worth looking at.
Well,
Okay.
Ryan brought it up.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the jailer said it would be good to look at.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess,
Just to be clear, we'd have to make salary adjustments so nobody loses money. So if they work,
What
shifts.
salary adjustments are you referring to?
Whoa.
So they don't make less money.
No, I'm saying you would have to adjust their salary so, yeah, so like whatever they make working 7 shifts now, they'd make the same working 6 shifts.
And why would you do that?
Because you're not paying 4 hours everything of overtime.
But you're going to add that pay to them. You're going to make their pay the same. You're not going to save anything.
The only thing that you could talk about there is that 312s and 312s, would it be appealing and would it attract and retain employees? And would the court want to consider paying that? But the real issue is that, yeah. And I don't think we have time right now to tackle that on this budget cycle. But if the jailer wants to, the request is 30. I hear Jeff making a recommendation of 28. We can't take any vote today, but we have to have a budget prepared on the.
I think 28's fair. Is this 26 right now?
He should have. He has 26 approved positions, yes, but he's at 23 actual full-time.
It's not like we've been close to 26 for a long time.
No, we've not hit 26 since we dropped it to 26.
And everybody voted for the budget to be approved. I mean, is that the way to go?
I just don't.
Now, here's my question to you all.
Yeah.
My question is, do y'all want to have a standalone vote on 28, 26, 30, 18, 17, 16, whatever? My question is, do you want to have a standalone vote on that, or do you want us to, make a budget that has, what has, Michelle's 28 in there now? So she had to make an estimate, and 28's in there now. So,
Let me ask this question, just like tell the whole story for me. So, when's the last time they had 28 full-time employees?
Well, like I just said, they haven't
2 years ago?
They haven't gotten back to 26 since you reduced it to 26.
Right.
Yeah.
so what's the reason for that? Not getting applications? Not paying enough? I don't know. I'm just saying, why is that?
I thought he said last Friday he was at 26 employees. Isn't that what he said?
no. He said he was at 25.
Oh, I thought they
Kara thought he was at 24, or Kara's dad had 24.
And he had one quit this weekend, so he's down to 23.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I just want to-
So the turnover's continuing to happen, and my question is, how do we stop that if we can't even get him to the whatever number?
There's a lot of there's a great book called The 12 Elements of Managing that covers a lot of reasons why, I mean, seriously, what it takes to build and retain a workforce. Pay is one of the equations, but it's not the only equation.
And Rick, I agree with you. That's part of the discussion that's tied to the budget.
Because the other thing is, I'm looking at the last 2 months, and he's putting on more stuff the court's been asking him to, wanting to know why so the crews are out now, and that's increased these last 2 months. It sounds like. Plus, he's got more programs, more things going on there, which we've asked for. And I know COVID blew all that up, so you can just forget about it. Now we're looking at today. Or that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm concerned if I don't have the answer to pick up more people. Down there, I deal with it every day out in the private world. It's just like today, I've got 10 employees and 5 of them weren't there today. And I never know. I wake up with a different crew every day. But anyhow, that's my problem.
Well, and it's just a very competitive labor market
Sure.
right now. I mean,
Everywhere.
It's hard to get nearly the applicants we used to get. It's hard to get people to show up for interviews. It's hard to get people to show up for the
I know
first day
you've
of
told
work.
us that.
I felt like he said he was getting more applicants.
That's true.
And that the $17, the change to the starting pay of $17 was helping, is what he was.
And then,
That's what he said, that's what I heard.
and then what will it be without any other changes if we go with this 5%? What will his starting pay be? Or does
It'll
it,
be 17 times 5 for the starting pay. That's 85 cents more now.
And there's training incentives.
right? Yeah. So
So we're throwing more pay
which I'm hoping will help.
Yeah.
Now, that's 85 cents is a little bit better than that 28 cents that I was pleasantly surprised, because he said, I believe he said Friday, that he thought that was what was helping him pick up a few people. I didn't know he's lost some more, but my point is, basically, I'm looking at those last 2 months figures, and he stood there and read a list of things that he's doing now that he wasn't doing probably for the last 1.5 to 2 years. I'm not sure of that time frame, but because of COVID. But also, it sounded like, and I thought he said, in that list of things, he's even doing a few more things than he was pre-COVID. I think is what he said. I think that's what I remember. I'm just looking at the fact that that's increased his staff's workload.
From these conversations, what would be your recommendation?
Well, for sure the 28, but I'm still thinking about like that 30, but I'm also considering the fact that he's, for whatever reason, not able to get more applications. But if that's improving, and if this COLA has a,
Why would we not just say, hey, if you get to 28, come back to us?
That's right.
I mean, get to 28 and come back to us and we'll
Make it, get to that point.
and take a look at it then too. Yeah,
You feel that's fair? You feel that's fair?
that's,
I also think that would give us time, because what Joe Pat said earlier, this budget based on data, it would give us more time to look at data of how many employees, you were going through the 25 and 28, so it would hopefully give us more time to look at data of how many FTEs
Well-
are actually needed.
well, plus it'll do what I think you're driving at, Judge, which is what I'm driving at. It'll give us some months into the new fiscal year to say, hey, we're getting more applications. And how is that affecting overtime or
So like,
whatever?
what I hear from Dwayne, and then what you all felt like was fair, is if he gets to 28, he's got 28 for a month or so,
We'll take a look at
and
it.
then we come back and revisit it.
And I think if we go back to revisit, he can sit down with Jeff and go through, like, what Jeff's been talking about. Here's how many people we got on the floor, here's how many people doing programming, and really lay out, I mean, we can all lay out a schedule of our employees, right? So he should be able to tell us, like, here's why I need 30.
All right. I think we've chewed on this long enough. If anybody else wants to chew more, speak now. Or
Do we need to talk about the pay situation where they're not on, their pay is not on the same deal?
Well,
We'll do it later.
well, that's our goal, and he said he supports doing that. We just got to meet with him and try to lay it out so we don't negatively impact any employee, because we don't want to do that. Now, I want to jump now, Jeff, to the coroner. And coroner was here. I passed out down through there. Y'all have this little piece of data. And we had a clerical error, but the numbers that you see there are the deputy coroner pay, and the median is $8,600. Bourbon's the median. They have 2 deputy coroners. Woodford's paying $16,800, Clark's $6,300, Jessamine $7,500, Pulaski $1,475. Grant County pays $5,500, but you can turn in expenses annually to the amount of $3,600. Franklin pays their deputy coroners $12,000, and Madison pays $13,300. We have 3 deputy coroners currently working. 1 works 2 weeks per month. You can see that data down there at the bottom. The request was to make our deputy coroner wage $17,000 per deputy coroner. With the median being $8,623, our pay being $8,300, I'll open the floor for discussion and conversation. If anybody wants to make any adjustments from the $8,300. And Mark, you're welcome to speak.
The reason I put in that request, I checked out with our neighboring counties, Woodford and Franklin, to get their wage. And our deputies, I guess y'all are familiar with, when they go on call, they're on call for that whole week. That's the seven days of 24 hours. That's 168 hours. And that's kind of equivalent to a 40-hour person that works for 4 weeks a month.
And that's 1 week a month.
And that's 1 week a month, but they're actually on call the whole time.
Okay.
I mean, most of the time they're Monday through Friday, they're in the office with myself. But when they go home, they're still tied to not being able to do anything because they have to be ready to make a call. So,
how many calls do you average a month?
Let's see. I'm already at 54 for the year, so I'd have to go look to see. Some weeks are busy.
A real question is, on average per month, how many times do they get called out?
Yeah,
I think that's a fair question. Anybody else have any other questions related to this data?
What was the open?
The real number is 83. I mean, that's our current pay, and we had a typo on the study information. That's what messed us up, kind of.
My question is, so if that's the pay, so in last fiscal year, according to the sheet, the deputy coroners made $24,500.
No, that's the total budget for all 4.
So
it should have been 32 something, I think. 32 and change for 4 at 8 for 83.
So the ask for this year is $24,900.
What was that, Michelle?
I believe there was a bump up in the middle of fiscal year of some sort, because that was the number 24,500.
Yeah.
That was the budget.
For the 3
that was
deputies.
approved, but I believe there was some kind of compensation adjustment in the middle of fiscal year.
Because with the 5% COLA, it goes down to 23.1, according. But that's not 8,300.
No, it's not. We've had to move money, transfer money into that line item.
Like right now, like that line item it's over the 24,500, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's a 20, probably around 28.
Okay.
What is the new one? Because
Well, the year-to-date line item.
This fiscal year.
So this fiscal year is over the 24.5.
Yes. Actual is around 28 right now.
So why is it higher than 20? Maybe that's where I'm
That's
missing.
what I'm saying. I believe there was a tier or maybe a compensation adjustment in the middle of this fiscal year, anywhere from July 1 to now. And so that actual is gonna change and it's gonna be slightly more than
a dumb question. You clarify-
There are no dumb questions.
Clarify what the ask is.
The ask was to give them $17,000 per deputy coroner. That was the request to the budget committee.
Per deputy coroner, so it's 4.
There's 3, but one works 2 weeks, so it's the equivalent of 4.
4 weeks.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait.
34,000.
Huh?
When we get paid 34,000 if you do this.
So that line item would go up to 68,000 proposed versus our 23.
No,
No?
he's requesting 17,000.
Request.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Oh, okay.
Per,
But we're not talking, yeah.
for 4 of them. So that would go from 23
Yeah.
to 68.
Yeah, it would.
This is 3.
If it was based upon the requested from the coroner.
In-
Right.
it would be that.
I understand that.
So, do you want to make a recommendation?
Let me think about that for a second.
All right.
I'm trying to do the math and.
Look at
and
the
I think
other.
The other good question is just, exactly, if we get some historical data, like these guys really do give up 4 days of work, or it's actually they're on call for a week, but usually it runs out being 1 day. I don't know. I mean, how do we put that into?
I don't know, I mean, they're responsible, they're on call.
I get that,
That
I'm
whole
for
week.
5 days, and I do it all year, it averages out 1 day out of those 5 that I get called, then I can kind of break down like what that
Yeah,
costs.
well, you never know how many days you're gonna get called. One week
We
you
don't
might
put
have,
any data.
one week you might have 6 calls.
That's
7
why I was
calls.
asking about average number
Well,
of
that's what I'm
calls.
saying. We keep that on how
per
many people
month.
die, or that we go to the corner checks on them. I'm not trying to be difficult, that's a big jump for the one.
Well, I reached out, I think the numbers, and I actually called Franklin County and Woodford County, and they were like at 15, 16 is what I got. And they work for the week, the same amount of time, about the same amount of calls per year, 150 to 200 calls a year.
But we can't
And that's
just
where I was-
we can't just look at 2 pieces of data.
Right.
When we make the median for all our jobs, we use multiple pieces of data in the general region.
Well, that's like Woodford County, I mean, if they have 4 corners,
Woodford has
Woodford has,
he didn't say
it's got a blank there, but it's.
actually, I think Woodford County, the last I checked, they had 3 deputies, and the coroner covered a week by himself, is how they covered theirs.
Rob. Rick.
I thought y'all talked about this in the budget before I got there.
Well, there was before you came.
Oh,
There was a clerical error
I got you.
in the median, and then also in the pay.
I just gotta let this digest a little bit, to be honest with you.
No, I wouldn't expect anybody to.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty close to, I guess, Bourbon and Warden Clark and Jessamine. So,
Mark, have
Yeah, they're all
you,
different.
and referencing the previous coroner, he would do things, I gotta be careful what I say here. He would take full-time salaries and he would split them up into 2 part-time people. He had non-paid people
Well,
doing stuff.
he had 4 paid positions like
Yeah,
I had now. But a lot of he had a lot of non-paid people.
yeah.
He had twice as many non-paid and at the time it looked like, it appeared that they were the ones going out doing a
Yeah,
lot of the calls.
right, yeah.
But I think the question we have is
Yeah.
we've got a request. Budget committee talked about it, but we had inaccurate data. Blame me on that. The question now is looking at the accurate data, do we want to adjust? Do we want to adjust and recommend for the budget? For the budget to be voted on with a certain dollar amount. 10,000, 9,000, 8,600.
So what is
the
the
request is 17,000
per
per deputy
deputy?
coroner.
Gotcha.
that's 100% increase, I mean, that's 100%.
That's 100% revenue.
Yeah, it's 8,300 right now. And I'm not opposed, I'm just trying to
No,
figure out.
Well, but if you you look at Madison, you look at Franklin, you look at Woodford, they're all ahead of us. We're pretty on par
They
with
have 3 also,
yeah.
we're doing 4. So if you look at their budget, 3 at 13 and 4 at 17.
You're yeah. I
But
follow what you're saying.
But you keep saying that we've got 4, but that's not how it plays out. We've got 3 and
There's
every
One.
third, every
The court
third.
approved
One is
4
working.
positions.
Oh,
One is working 2 weeks.
Up to 4. He uses one guy to take 2 to really make 4. You
I've got one guy
Who's on
wait
first?
just a minute.
Rick?
Yeah. Listen, we got a new hiring policy.
I've got one guy that works 2 weeks straight.
Gotcha.
And the other ones.
Are these,
And then the next guy, then the next month, somebody else does that, or no?
No, just one particular person said,
Oh.
I'll do 2 weeks.
Each month.
Originally, you had 4, and one gentleman had to step out. Is that right?
No, I started out, it was, we had 3, and then one of those worked the 2 weeks. One of those gentlemen that stepped out worked just 1 week.
But
And then
you
he
were,
was replaced with.
are these benefited positions?
No,
No, there's no benefit.
no. And we don't get holidays off either. They're on call holidays, you know.
Why don't the budget committee just get together and we'll talk about this?
And send out an
then we'll make
email.
a recommendation, yeah.
All right, sounds
Yeah,
good to
that work
me.
for you.
yeah.
Sounds good to
Clear it
everybody?
up for us, Chad.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I can do that.
All right.
But I think I got
I
it.
think it's a fair thing. And then, Mark, while you're up here, Mark also made 2 comments to me before this meeting, or one comment. He requested, would the budget committee and the court consider how many hours of training do you? He heard about the training incentive package for EMS and the detention center, and you all do 16 hours of training.
We have to do 18 a year.
18 hours
It's
of training.
mandatory to do 18 continuing ed a year.
How much prior to, before you get to CEUs, the community med, what do you have to do, train?
It's a 40-hour basic training course, and then you
like the
continue with
jails.
18 hours, and you can do more.
50 hours
You
for
can do
$1,000
more. You
bucks.
just have to at least do at a minimum 18 a year. You can take 2 classes, and when you have to take them, they're not around here. You have to go to Shelby campus or Moorhead, places like that to get them.
So for 18 hours,
Mhm.
and we've kind of been doing $20 an hour incentive training than some of the other departments, so like $360 per employee. Does that sound right?
That's consistent with the.
I mean, I'm on the committee, but I would make that recommendation. I think that's fair. But I'll take it to them, but that seems reasonable.
So we'll include that in that conversation with the budget committee. And then lastly, while Mark's still standing there, Mark also, when we ordered gave him permission to order the walk-in cooler, his original request was around $64,000, including the cooler.
Mm-hmm.
But you brought me back an amended request for $73,000, and you can tell the court, what's the additional monies there.
Well, the additional, in the beginning, we weren't going to move to that location full-time. We were just going to store there, pick up, deliver, let the funeral homes come and pick up. And then we decided that maybe we could move our office down there. We would take one of the bays and make it an office space, which would require putting up a wall to divide it and then some floor covering for that office. Try to, get it in office, Doing that, we could move out of this building down here on Hamilton Street and be utilized for another department needed it, or it could be leased or whatever y'all decide to do with it. We'd be freeing up that other location. And that's what the extra that would get us in there, in that building. Mm-hmm.
So he's got 3 overhead doors, $13,000, upgraded mini split to heat the place, $7,000, $4,200 for electrical, wall construction for office area, $10,500.
How many mini splits?
Just one.
It's a one-man split. You have to have 2 heads, one
So the current proposed budget has 36,000 in there, and it says includes 31,000 for modifications to Penn Avenue.
Thank you.
Is this for 73,000 on top of that, or just?
No,
40,000?
it's really the difference between 64 and 73.
Yeah, it's just, that's total. That's making that office down there.
Okay.
And doing so, I got to looking today, and with the bid on the garage doors, probably we can get away with just 2 garage doors instead of the third one, because that one area that we're talking about making into an office and putting the cooler, we wouldn't need the overhead door, so we could just fill that in. So I could get the guy that's building the wall to put that wall and fill that in, so that would get us away from having to purchase one of the overhead doors.
So, so you're taking off,
Actually, it would be about 3,600 off of the overhead door bid. And putting it back on the, you know. And I don't know, I haven't asked haven't gotten that yet as far as adding to that.
my recommendation is I'll adjust this to 68.5, and we'll find a way to get it done. If y'all want to vote on it, yay or nay, you can on the 25th. There's no reason to. If you take that door off, I think you can get it done. Instead of 64, going to 68.5.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the gentleman is doing, putting the wall up and everything, what he would charge to fill that area in where there was a door.
It would definitely be cheaper than So we'll make that adjustment, and then if y'all have questions, we'll come back to it. Thank you, Mark.
How many square foot would that office be, Mark?
It's 14 wide by 38 long, but the office part is just going to be 18 by 14. Because the other part of that particular bay area was going to be where the cooler is installed.
Any other questions? Thank you. Next slide. Well, no, we got to go to the bottom thing here. This budget includes a recommendation from the Budget Committee to add an IT coordinator. Jeff has an estimated salary, wage of approximately $80,000. Looking at other market medians, that's probably on the low side, to be honest. But we stuck 80 in there. I believe it's as much needed as anything we need. We have over 300 employees. Cybersecurity and safety and all those things, security is huge. It's time that we do this. We've talked about it for 4 years almost, and this person would help all departments. The Sheriff's Department has a new position that handles a lot of things at the Sheriff's Department, but mainly body cam footage, those requirements, but it's doing a lot of other things. But this individual would help all departments, and it's badly needed.
Would that replace those folks, or?
No, that's $650 a month. If we have a special call meeting, they prorate that. Right. That is worth every dime.
Well, that person,
but
that person would somewhat be involved.
No, they'd be coordinating.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's going to be good to get everybody with one person with all departments, like the email switch over, just understanding all the technology. And I think, because I had questions when we first talked about the budget committee, but I'm sold on it. I think it'll be good.
Any other questions? Next slide, please. So this is new. I wanted to just highlight it. Capital Improvement Fund proposed revenues. You had to go somewhere, and you had to make some estimates. So state grants, we're estimating about $250,000. Reimbursements up to about $2.75. That includes city's reimbursement for the EMS site. Ag extension, $50,000. I can't remember that other little piece there, but And then interest on money markets is just estimated at 1,000 there. Yes, ma'am.
The other little piece there is Whitaker Bank.
Whitaker Bank, yes, for the RFP. So moving down there, cash transferred in from other funds. That's the ARPA. That's $1 million in ARPA, correct?
1 point, yeah, it's a little more than $1 million.
Yeah, and then general fund reserves. And then borrowed money, we estimated just at 10, but estimated high. Now, once these bids come in, we have to make a hard decision where we want to keep our reserve at. And we can have that discussion then. This is just estimates, and it's showing us where money's coming from. Next slide, please. This is, and I can read it to you. I'm sorry, it's a little small, but you've got in there the big ticket items that we're getting done is the heating and air conditioning equipment at the current Justice Center, $150,000. We've got to get that done. Hopefully, we'll find somebody that will be willing to do that work. Park construction projects, we put that in at for that TAP grant. That's including 979. That's 500,000, and then 479 for the other one. And we're still waiting to hear. We've been approved for the one, but we're hopeful to get the other. Now we could make that smaller.
You're talking about for the trails?
Yeah, the trails.
The trail.
We could make that smaller if we're allowed to use the flex fund money like we talked about, which is about 200,000. Park construction projects, upgrade, building projects, AOC. We were told we needed to put a $500,000 line item in there for that judicial center. Really, that bond anticipation notes coverage. We won't ever use it, but it needed to be in there. Farmers market, we have 1 million estimated. Of course, we've talked about the funding that's coming in from other areas to help there. The generator project's 450,000 to get that closed out. Hopefully by Christmas, John, is that where our goal is? And then 500,000 is that North Sewer Match Grant, North Sewer Project Match Grant that we put in there. Regional Economic Development Project at PDI. I've requested, the Budget Committee agreed it was a good idea to put in there 500,000 as a placeholder. I think that's a reality that's coming to us, and I'm optimistic about that project. And what that project would do for us is provide another revenue stream for occupational license fees that would help with costs in the future. In my opinion, you got to pay to make some money. You got to make some investments, and that 500,000 is a placeholder, But if we, as we've discussed, if we got into an agreement with other counties, I would want us to be, at the same level of investment as other counties in this agreement, this regional agreement. Give you an example. Madison County's proposing to spend $2 million of their own money and then get $2 million from the PDI fund. So there'd be a total of $4 million. I've talked to Mayor Jenkins, and he's going to, the same thought process is once we get through this application, if we're awarded and we got this going, we would want to be on the same level as Madison County or other counties that are Fayette County perhaps that might be in the agreement. That's more to come. Storm shelters, we've got I would love to get these paid in this budget. We have the money in this budget. I've got the easements done, and we've got to finalize that. If we could get that paid for out of this budget, we might try, but we've got to put it in next year's budget. That's $150,000 each, one at Stamping Ground and one at Lyle Road area. And then building sheriff clerk site, I think you've got 13 million in that as an estimate from the Robert Pace and Associates and BCI, and then approximately 5 million for the EMS site. That gets us to that total number there, 23,487 million. So that's new. I want you to understand that not all of that's going to be expended out of this year's budget, but for transparency purposes, that's why we put it all there. So next slide. All right. Department proposed budget questions. I can go down through and list some highlights and try to answer any questions. Let me talk about this because it's always something, a discussion. There were several requests for vehicles. The Budget Committee is recommending 6 leases of Tahoes for the Sheriff's Office, 3 leases of Tahoes for EMS, 1 Tahoe for fire, 1 half-ton pickup lease for animal control. And that's, then there will be some shifting of vehicles that are freed up once we get new ones on fleet that could go to other agencies. The Budget Committee, Mark Sutton made a request, Mike Hennigan made an additional request. Of course, Sheriff Hampton requested 10 Tahoes, and the Budget Committee felt like we could go with 6. But that's always a conversation piece. Any comments about any of that? And of course, the fire apparatus plan that we shared last week as well. There's no new monies in this budget, but we will add monies as we go forward.
Back to the leasing.
Yes.
Refresh my memory on how that works. So that's not a lease to own?
It's a 3-year lease, and at the end of the term, we own the vehicle.
Oh, so it is
Yeah, we own the vehicle. It just reduces your capital output up front. And I think it's wise to do it that way.
So we're paying for them for
over
a 3-year period.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I need to leave, sorry.
No.
On the title request, I appreciate the 6. One thing to keep in mind as well, if we add the 3 SROs, is that's 3 more vehicles. And it's very important that they have a vehicle to be at the school as a deterrent and to move around to different schools. So just ask you to consider that, but I understand you got to do what you got to do. But you have a list there in front of you where we're getting rid of 8 vehicles. I'm sorry?
Are you able to get vehicles?
Yeah, and actually he's needing a number from me. Bachman is. He's needing me to give him a number relatively quick. So I guess if it's 6, that's what I'll tell him. But, you know.
And none of these can be used by SROs?
They're not in very good shape. JR, I don't know if you did you get the list ever? We might be able to keep 1 or 2 of the Explorers, maybe, and use those. So, because they're not going to be patrolling really. So,
Well, yeah.
so we,
Right, I was thinking that kind of same
Yeah.
thing. So, but the other question I got is, so if we just stick with the 6 new, just saying, if we did that, so will that, when those come in, will that roll some more?
so
Will that replace, or how will that work?
So, well, it would roll some down.
Roll some into the fleet, or?
Yeah, we would.
Not fleet, but what do you call it?
Well, some of these will be coming out of what we're currently using, and then we'll pass some down. They're not new and they have high miles, but they do a great job of maintaining them.
Right on, right.
Yeah, so,
Do you have this like with all of your vehicles, whether it's signed?
I'm sorry?
Do you have like one of these with everybody's signed, a spreadsheet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do, we have that. And keep in mind, if we get rid of all these, it would leave 3 pool cars.
Pool, that was the word I was looking for.
And currently, we have 4 vehicles in the shop at Dan Cummins, so that's, you just never know. So that's kind of on the low end to have 3 pool cars, honestly.
And I don't know the answer to this, I'm gonna ask it. It's a dumb question probably, but I'm gonna ask it.
There's no dumb question.
I know, but, so, as you said, Sheriff, the SRO folks would not necessarily be patrolling, so they wouldn't put the mileage on and so forth, and they maybe could have a vehicle that's a pool car possibly, but I understand that may even be difficult at times, the way it's looking on the sheet. But would that, what about instead of are most of these four-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, what are we, when we, like these,
The Tahoes we get are police pursuit package.
They are.
Four-wheel drive.
so
And-
for the SROs, is there maybe a lower standard? I don't know what the word I'm looking for,
Would
but
they need that, what you're asking, would they need that police pursuit package?
type of thing,
And could
or
they
is there a lower grade?
The best thing to do with SROs is pass vehicles down to them that are
Right,
currently
okay.
upfitted, and maybe they're not really good for patrol, but just pass them down and.
Yeah, because you're wanting that marked vehicle.
Oh, yeah,
as a
absolutely.
presence.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
I mean, that's part of
Yeah.
not only the officers there, but the public can know it, or whoever, heaven forbid, anybody, any bad guys, but
Right.
that can be seen. It's a marked vehicle if you pass it
Correct.
down. That's already done.
But I think we could probably identify maybe two in here. I'll have to talk to Devin, who's over the fleet, and maybe use those for the SROs. Keep them as pool cars if we don't go with the SROs. But
If there's any, I'll send out an email and I'll include that if the budget committee wants to make any change to the recommendation in the next
Yeah.
few days.
if anybody has any individual questions or whatever, call me. You got my cell phone number.
So going through different budget
Thank you, Sheriff.
requests. Animal control, like I mentioned earlier, biggest thing there's really no, we're adding gas, no staff changing. Vehicle, they're replacing a 2008 Ford with they want a half-ton pickup. So that's, and we're recommending that change. And that, JR says that's a wise decision on that 2008. We'll still probably use it somewhere, but for animal control, it's probably needed. EMA sirens, there is a $25,000 line item that I wanted to draw your attention to. Hazmat team, equipment maintenance.
So wait a minute, on those sirens,
Yes.
is that those storm warning?
Tornado.
Are they being replaced
There's
or?
a 25,000 siren that's going on out at the airport area.
Oh,
So that's my understanding. Hazmat team equipment maintenance, about $20,000 line item in there. They also made some some vehicle requests, but the budget committee felt like we could maybe perhaps use a vehicle from EMS that their staff, it's mainly for volunteers to use. We're hopeful that one of those vehicles could be used by EMA staff. The sheriff's office, we're some noted items in lines. The clef was an additional $15,000 that had to go up. Gas, we're estimating to go up about $60,000. Computer software, additional $5,000. The SRT team, some training and equipment, additional $20,000. And then the request for the Tahoes. We also put a line item for the handgun request, and there's some gas masks requests. You put those in a different line item, didn't you? Yes. But we felt like it was needed. And then also in the law enforcement equipment line item, you're getting the body cam, package called Cellbrite that helps with investigations on cell phones. Calio, I remember him telling me what Calio was, but it was
It's in the unit, the police cruiser unit. It has something to do with an alert system where
Yeah.
they can communicate throughout the state.
Yes. And then flock cameras, This is all in the law enforcement equipment line item, and that's from the sheriff's office. Any other questions about that? Felt like the budget committee looked at that pretty hard, felt like those were justified. EMS, I'm gonna go to EMS. The big thing is that contract ALS 360. That's approximately $588,000, but that is so needed, in my opinion, in the budget committee's opinion. It's going to give us continuity over time and maintenance, and then we get an upgrade after 5 years. I think it's very wise. Gas, we added $55,000. Office supplies, we had to add about $12,500 because of a data collection software package that goes on every ambulance. Uniforms, we added about $15,000 for winter coats, is what I had down. Med supplies, an additional $270,000, and that's, Chris, you want to add to any of that? EMS training, an additional $160,000. We've talked about that in the training. Building maintenance, down at Stamping Ground, HVAC needs to be fixed, and some flooring down there as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But could you go back to that med supplies line? And
yeah, it's under medical supplies and equipment. There's a ventilator in there that we're going to purchase. We use some state money for that. We get a grant for $10,000, so we pay the difference, and that's usually about $7,000 for those old vents we use. Some cases for our IV pumps that we just purchased last budget cycle. We need some protective cases for those. That's about $1,000. We need to replace some of our long spine boards. That's $7,000. And then ALS bags. We need 3 new ALS bags at $4,000. And then the majority of that money is for the new ambulances. So we get 2 coming in, and those have to have the power load mounts put in them, and whatever supplies we can't. Most of it will come over from the other ambulances that we're replacing, but we have one that we're adding to the fleet. So we have to outfit that, and that's the majority of the
I
cost.
thought power load was coming from the ALS 360.
Well, it will, except for this one that we've got picking up this month. So, I mean, we can wait till July to put it on the road, but we'd like to not.
Like how much?
It was my understanding when she did that presentation that new power load, this is just what I remember from saying it, that it was not available for, as of yet, as far as, she said it wasn't available to give a price for it.
Yeah, that
So I
was
think
the new stair chair,
that's
the mechanical stair chair.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean that power load is probably going to be $20,000, right?
Yeah, the plate.
Plate,
Yeah.
and you already have this. Do you have the stretcher for it? Do you have the power load system as well?
The one we've custom built will come with all that. That's part of the build.
Okay.
But the one we just purchased will have to be installed.
You all think you're going to need it within before ALS 360?
I mean, probably. I mean, it's in this budget, so we couldn't do it before then anyway. So that should be covered. You're correct at that.
Yeah, I mean, like you could take that out because we should get it with the ALS 360,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, plate, floor plate.
Okay. So can you and I and Chris adjust that in there? And then we mentioned also other equipment. That line included 18 new mattresses, and then 6 new radios as well. And that price on those mattresses was from an online provider.
Yeah, and you would ask us to
Yeah.
get better pricing, and we did.
So-
I don't have those quotes with me, so that will be cut,
And then-
reduced too.
And then we do have in next year's budget $165,000 to pay off the ambulance
Correct.
that we just purchased, and then we've got money in there for adjustment pay equity, and then the one thing that still needs to be followed up on. I went and met with Cliff Owens from the hospital and asked the hospital if they would consider any partnership of capital towards the community paramedicine position that was requested. It's a $110,000 estimate. I'm hopeful that he will get back with me this week. I can share with you all that, and then if you want to take it out, you take it out. If you want to leave it in, you leave it in. But I'll get back with everybody on that. I think it was a request from the budget committee to go to the hospital and ask for a partnership. So that's what I've done, and wanted to bring that up. Any other questions from Chris? All right, Chris, thank you. Road Department JR's here. Gas, we needed to add about 25,000. Machine and equipment, we're ordering 2 dump trucks, 2 mowing tractors, 2 side mount mowers, and 1 skid steer that are all badly needed. Our road materials are about 1.4 million in there, and I recommend that we make an adjustment to the mechanic salary, and Jeff and I have talked about that today, and I think we need to make sure that the money's in there to make that adjustment, make sure we got mechanics on duty. But we'll send out an email about that.
JR, your mechanic works on all county, right?
Yes, all types of vehicles, ambulance, fire trucks, heavy equipment.
JR, anything else you want to add to that, what I mentioned?
No.
All right.
You selling an old dump truck?
All right, moving on through here, county clerk and elections, postage has gone up. I mean, about $15,000 is one thing that stood out to me. And then I think, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but Kenna, we put in an additional $80,000 in there for additional election equipment.
Yes.
Printers, on-demand printers, and
we are scheduled to receive that money back, reimbursement from the state as part of this ongoing grant. So we'll be receiving money back.
Cam Culberson, our county attorney, made a budget request really with no significant changes. I wanted to make note of that.
I can notice that.
Electrical inspection really has no significant changes at all. Our coroner, we've talked about that. I did say that coroner had made requests for a van, for a Suburban and a truck, and we've asked, the budget committee felt like we'd asked if we did this building maintenance and come back and revisit the vehicles next year. So that's that. We'll share on the salaries. Yes, sir.
Can I add something on that request? It was basically, and I understand, but vehicles, it was to allow the county to go on to pickups with the camper shell, completely isolate the person away from the employees and biohazards and stuff with everything that we come in contact with. So I was asking for a pickup, half-ton pickup, and I think it comes in quite a bit cheaper than the replacement of the Suburban. So I just want to vote.
You got two Suburbans now, is that right?
We got two, one's 15 and one's 16.
Do you have concerns about how would you load? Because you wouldn't be able to put the tailgate, you couldn't put a Power Pro on there.
Yes, well, you could, but I've got pictures of Tate County, Franklin County.
Oh, they make a
Shelby
system
County.
for it.
Yeah, they set them up to where, the tailgate comes off and the canopy, the back door goes up. But you have the parking space on the side. But basically, obviously, we have to haul someone, take the Frankfurt or whatever. Sometimes you will have stuff that come out into the vehicle. This way, it's completely separate from, the employees.
If anybody on the budget committee wants to recommend adding that, they certainly can. Thanks, Mark. Fire department, medical supplies, some of the highlights was an additional $52,000 and for medical supplies, and another $11,000 for testing. John, you want to add? Can you step forward and add anything there as I go through here? that testing was pretty much required, wasn't it?
Which line item?
On medical supplies, and then the is it BBH testing?
There says 11,700 for Hoskins. Oh, never mind. Yeah. And then BBH PT testing and screening.
That's just with the, the hiring, as far
Yes.
as getting their,
We had to
medical
add that
physicals.
in
Yes.
for the new staff.
Yeah.
Gas, we added, that line's is $100,000 is what I recall. It's an additional 20,000
You know,
for gas,
For fuel.
for fuel.
let's see if we can't get them boys to slow down.
Okay, you fire truck yet?
Yeah.
Then there's 170,000 in there and a request for confined space rescue equipment. And then,
Dude, get them boys to slow down.
you want me to slow down?
No.
Office supply, we added $5,000 to that line. At your request, you laid out rationale. You're going to replace some uniforms and protective gear. You're trying to phase through your turnout. That's not.
We're in the process of trying to make sure all members have 2 sets of turnout gear.
Yeah.
So that way, once their set gets 5 years old, we'll start the process of getting them another. So, because every 10 years they have to be discarded.
Okay. That's about 185,000. Then outside, what we've laid out that apparatus purchasing plan. There's no money in next year's, but we will order 2 new pumpers in next year, but won't expend any funds. John had made a request of a new brush truck and a new shift commander Suburban. We shifted that. The brush trucks, we have 2 brush trucks, and the engine's been fixed on the one that was a problem. We think we can make it another year without buying another brush truck. But we are recommending a Tahoe instead of Suburban for the battalion chief vehicle, and that is recommended by the budget committee. And then originally, I think we had special projects. John, the exhaust system have you gotten that bid done?
We got the bids. We were going to bring it before court last Friday, but I hadn't had time to go through it all. So I'll be bringing that on Thursday night for your all's approval. We got 2 bids, so we're just still trying to figure out which of those 2 bids to go with. But that is the federal grant. Basically, we're responsible for right at $18,000 of that total cost, which is $196,000, somewhere.
So that's about $18,000 is in there, and then $70,000 for upgrades on the training center. That's behind the station. John had originally asked the budget committee for 14 bay doors to replace bay doors with insulated doors, and then with better openers and such. But we scaled that back to 8 to start with, and we're going to do 2,200 Cincinnati Road first, and that was what was mentioned in the budget. And then a big thing that was original request in the budget was about $400,000 for an 8-bay metal storage building that's been requested for several years by EMA and fire. But what we've done is we've done some hard research, and we actually believe for about $200,000 we can get a 50 by 120 8-bay storage building built. So the recommendation is to put about $200,000 into the budget, and that will be for EMA and fire, and it'll be right behind the station 2200.
Right.
The only thing I'm concerned about is making sure that the new building looks, like we need to tie that other building together with it somehow, whether we make the new one look like the existing or resheet the old one eventually to make it look the same. And then that's, and then we've also added three firemen to the budget, and that's I think significant too. And we're gonna, once we get all of them full-time duty in August, then we would hope to see a significant reduction in overtime hours, and we will. I'm sure we will. Don't think I have, in the jail budget, there was one significant capital piece that was a control panel that's been in there for several years. We put that in there, and it's $140,000. There was no other significant items there other than the staffing. At Great Crossing Park, Michelle, can you tell me how much we added in the line for Great Crossing Park to purchase some trees and maybe some landscape, not landscape, but some turf upgrades? That was the only significant change out there that I remember. Sorry.
No, that's fine. We put 80 in the budget, includes landscaping upgrades and fall common ground turf. And
The comment, like trying to do some seeding and such. And then disc golf. We did put money in there for disc golf. Mr. Wallace had made this recommendation. He's not even here. But I want to stop right there because we're going on 2 hours. The one thing I want to mention is in our Parks and Recreation, can you go to Parks and Rec for me, please? Can you tell me what our total... No pressure, Michelle, no pressure.
Okay, here we go. Right there.
So in Parks and Rec, can you read what that recommendation is?
Parks program support, 1.332685.
And then that reflects about 6% less than what they asked for. And then the city should match that. But on the capital piece, what did we put in there for capital?
$324,450.
And that's significantly less than what they had asked for because the budget committee felt like we should push kind of pause until we kind of see what comes out of what we discussed about a joint city-county capital projects for parks plan that could be built here in September, October, August, and that's a picture that is kind of left to be painted, and neither the city nor I felt like it would be wise to try to rush to put a plan together. And this kind of came out of the interlocal meeting that was a couple months ago. So
what kind of capital projects are you?
Well, what's been mentioned is they're doing a master plan, but the low-hanging fruit is the clover leaf at Great Crossings, a 25-meter lap pool at the current outdoor aquatic
Clover
center.
leaf at Great Crossing. You mean an additional?
The additional 4 fields. That'd be the phase 2 that's always been planned, and then turfing a field at Marshall Park for youth football, turfing a field at Lyle Road for youth soccer, and then the last thing is pickleball. I really wanted to go on and put pickleball in our budget, but since we're considering this capital plan, I would like to. We should probably just wait because pickleball's it'd be $650,000 by the time you do it. It's the reality of what it is. I think we could get it done a little less, but if this doesn't materialize and we can't get a plan, I might come back to you and say, hey, let's amend the budget and build a pickleball court. But we'll cross that in August. And the thought process is that if you got a grand total on the capital project, that the city and the county would split it. We could pay for our part the way we wanted to. They could pay for their part the way they wanted to, and we would address that at that time. But I do think with the growth of our community that our recreation facilities have to expand. So that's something for another conversation.
Yeah, so you're still saying pause for this upcoming
Yeah,
budget.
and that's why the Parks and Rec budget kind of reflects a reduction in what they requested, just because we want to see where this goes. We've gone 2 hours. I'll be happy to come back later this week. I'll be happy to come back next week, have another meeting if you all feel like we need to do that. If you have questions after you review the budget more, you email me. I'll try to get you any questions answered. The one thing that I still want to talk about, I'm sorry, is can we go to the next slide? The social service nonprofit proposed budget. That includes $125,000 for the dual credit scholarship endowment, $50,000 towards a museum, $85,000 towards senior center, $50,000 towards Scott United. That's kind of through an agreement with Toyota that we agreed with. The other nonprofits make it all total out to $316,950, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about any of those requests. I want to mention one other thing. Magistrate Rob Jones came to me, and I shared with the budget committee about additional monies for stamping ground towards their fire department. In the past, we have given additional monies, but it's been requested, and nothing's been requested. They said, could something, the appropriate thing might be for them to make another request. So that's what was shared. I didn't want you to feel like that hadn't been ran up the ladder. So I don't think I have any other things to share. If anybody has any other questions, please shoot me, email me, ask, and then we'll try to get them answered, and then share information, and then have a draft for you to look at that's going to be presented, a couple days, 2 or 3 days before the 25th, so you can really go over it again. But we would tell you if we, any changes that were made, adjustments. Yes, sir. All right. With that said, thank you all. Rob, if they want to say.